you do a business like this long enough, you start to see a lot of the flaws in the way the business is done and maybe come up with some ways to improve on that process. Cold brew was really kind of a game changer within the industry. Once coffee roasters started brewing coffee and kegging coffee and putting on draft systems, it opened our eyes to a whole new way of doing the coffee business. The idea being that if you can make a 12-ounce Mexican mocha or a 12-ounce vanilla latte, why can't you make 500 gallons of it? It's just some science and some scalability and just changing your formula a little bit. So we got the idea of like, okay, all the drinks on our menu can be made in batches, can be put in kegs, and can be put on our draft system. And pretty soon you started seeing in our cafes a draft system with 8 handles, 12 handles, all kinds of different flavors that we were crafting in our brewery, putting in kegs and putting on a cold draft system. So this immediately changed our business model to more of a service, almost like bartending. Like, oh, you want a Mexican mocha? You go to our tap system and you simply pour it. We're not crafting every drink from scratch. A lot of our drinks are already in finished form in a keg. This has caught on really well with customers. The cold brew phenomena has been amazing. It's a new way of doing coffee. Everybody asks, is it a fad or is it here to stay? The reason people love cold brew is you're using much lower temperatures to extract flavor. So you're not getting all the solubles and the meat and the oils and the pulp from coffee like you do in a hot brew. So as a result, it's a lot gentler on the body. It also takes longer to extract that flavor since you're not using hot temperature. And as a result, you get more caffeine. The coffee is actually in the water longer. So in cold brew, you get a softer product on your body with a more concentrated caffeinated effect. So is it a fad? No, it's an improvement on coffee and it's here to stay. And it got us thinking more about hot coffee. Yeah, cold brew's great and everybody loves it, but what about hot cold brew is an idea? And it got us going on this idea of installing a heater inside of a beer tower and connecting our keg to it and seeing what it tastes like, because in the end coffee is black water and water heaters heat water. So we tried it and it worked. It didn't work perfectly, but it worked. So we patented the idea and we registered the name Hot Draft. We're taking any product from a cold vessel to hot on demand. So this is a patent that we own. So when you come into our shops and you order coffee now, it's no longer being brewed in a coffee brewer and served from an urn. It's being served out of a tap. It's taking 40-degree coffee in a refrigerator up to 170 degrees to pour. This has been an enormous change in the culture of the way coffee is done in a coffee shop. It has given us tremendous power in the way that we do things, and we're adding new accounts that love this. Sustainability is unbelievable. Typically in a coffee shop or in a coffee environment, you brew and you have a freshness standard. It might be 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, you have to dump that pot of coffee out regardless of whether anyone wants it or not, because it's been sitting too long and the temperature has dropped. So you dump and brew, and this goes on all day in the commercial industry. So there's a tremendous amount of waste in coffee brewing. Now, once you brew coffee and put it in a keg and top it off with nitrogen to protect it, you drink every drop. There's no need to throw out any coffee. The coffee is protected by nitrogen, so it never oxidizes. So we're able to get 6+ months out of a keg at room temperature just sitting out because nothing will go bad. Our motivation was to make something that tastes great. That worked. Not only do you get a nice soft flavor, but by pushing the product through the heater with nitrogen gas, it actually nitrogenates like a Guinness stout or like a stout beer. It gives you that thick, creamy nitrogen foam on top. So it gives a really cool texture to black coffee. So everything about this has been tremendous. Not only is it a better flavor and we're using cold brew and making it hot, but the sustainability is off the charts. We've eliminated all that waste in coffee. And now with the pandemic, suddenly the way that things are made is important. Hygiene is hyper-focused right now, the way people handle products. So now if you own a coffee shop, we bring you a keg. It's a sealed vessel. It's a vacuum. It's been sanitized and cleaned before it was filled. It's pushed through a draft system. It's a closed system with nitrogen. Nobody's touching the product. So the product is simply served from a handle and poured into a cup. So from a sanitary standpoint, it's a much cleaner way than a bag of coffee that you scoop in and put in the basket and your hands are all over the filter. So this is an added benefit that, we hadn't really intended in the beginning, but people will look at today and value tremendously. This is kind of our newest innovation, is our hot draft. If you do something long enough, you start to find answers. And we've looked at all the dilemmas of coffee in terms of temperature and flavor and bitterness, the expensive equipment that you use to make it, and how you can improve upon that process so that the star is the product again and not the equipment. So much in our our industry, the focus is on the type of espresso machine you have or the type of coffee brewer you have, as opposed to what kind of coffee do you have? Where did that product come from? Focus should always be on the product. And so we're just unwinding this process and trying to come up with techniques and ideas to simplify the delivery so that like when you go to a bar to have a beer or a glass of wine, it's a very simple service. They simply pour the beer or they open the wine bottle with a wine screw, a very simple technology. And so we're trying to create that in the coffee environment where products are more in finished form. So we deliver you kegs of Mexican mochas and kegs of vanilla lattes and kegs of teas and coffees so that you're simply serving them in a cold draft system. Or you hook them up to our hot draft tower and you heat them. That's sort of the big picture of who Ryan Brothers Coffee is. We're a company that's been around for a while. We innovate. We always look to do things better. We always look make coffee taste great.